Hi folks, welcome to another Chief Steamer video on replacing components. I want to remind you again that I'm probably the only one who does this, that shows you, not only tells you that the machine is going to break, we show you how to fix it when it does break. Refer to our other diagnostic videos, our maintenance videos, but in today's video we're going to do a water pump. Water pumps can sometimes go bad, sometimes they go bad because they get clogged from lack of maintenance, and sometimes because it's an electrical component they just go bad. So we're going to show you the water pump inside of a 100 machine. The water pump is going to be exactly the same on a 125 and also a 155. That would just be 240 volts. We've already showed you how to move the body out of the way to get this side wall and give us more access on how to get to the water pump. So replacing a water pump is fairly easy. If you have any kind of mechanical ability, the machine generally does not need to come back to me for this. So here's our water pump. So this is our water pump, and this is the bypass valve. So when you buy a water pump off the website, we always send you the bypass valve that goes with it, because sometimes these bypass valves can fail, and what the bypass valve does is it sends water back to the water tank, excess water that's not needed. So here's our pump inside the machine. We have our incoming feed tube from our water tank that feeds the pump. There's a piston in here that pushes the water into the boiler. So here's our brass tube that comes out. Here's our bypass valve, and this is a fitting that leads to the plastic tube that feeds into the boiler. When you take this apart, it's fairly simple. We need a 14mm wrench. You want to hold on to the brass bypass valve with a pair of channel locks, wrench the nut off, get it to spin off, release the nut. Now if the tube doesn't come out right away, which sometimes it will, sometimes it won't, there's a ferrule sleeve in there. Sometimes it's just as simple as banging on it with a pair of pliers to release that. This does not need to be replaced. This will make the seal again into this fitting. Just move this out of the way. Unless we've determined that there's a blockage in this fitting leading into the boiler, and on older machines there is that possibility, don't touch this fitting going into the boiler. This can just hang out like that. Now what you will need to do is swap over this fitting into the new bypass valve. I do not send the new fitting with the bypass valve. This just needs to be swapped over. Blow it out with compressed air, make sure it's clean. As far as getting the pump out of the machine, we want to disconnect this rubber tube. This is the rubber tube that sends water back to the water tank. So just take this out of the way. Now it's very difficult to make a mistake because this tube is already laying in this position close to the bypass valve nipple, and it's a longer tube than the tube that's in the back of the pump that leads to the back of the pump for your water fill. So we want to disconnect the electrical wires. Now take note of the top of the pump. Here we have the blue resistor is a heat-treated resistor. That's to gauge temperature. Then we have our black wire more inside, and we have our yellow wire more outside. This is important because if these get switched, the pump won't operate and you'll think you have a bad pump. So remove this wire, remove this wire, remove the blue heat sensor, just press the wires out of the way. We have a rubber grommet that slides over this part of our pump right here. Just press that off. Remove the back rubber tube, which is the fill. Now from the front, you'll see that we have this grommet that is not letting the pump loose. Instead of removing this grommet from the base of the machine, we're simply going to slice it with a razor blade. This is fine. We just slice it with a razor blade and then we twist it, and the pump, the old pump, comes out of the machine. So the old pump is out. The new pump would be ready to go in. I've already installed the bypass valve for you with the new pump, so you're getting a new pump and a bypass valve that's listed on the website. You're going to switch over the fitting for the tube. Now putting it back in is very simple. Putting it back in, I like to connect the water tube first. Now if this part of the water tube right here looks like it's been stretched too much, just chop about 1/8 of an inch off to get fresh rubber, so we'll get a nice tight fit on this back nipple. We don't want a loose fit because a loose fit can cause a leak or the tube can come off. So if you feel that that tube has been stretched out too much, chop off about 1/8 of an inch. There's enough slack inside the machine where you can do that. Send the tube through the hole in the grommet. Connect the tube to the back of the pump. Press it on as far as it can go. It's going to make a nice tight fit. This rubber grommet can go over the sleeve of the back of the pump and sit like that. Now it's time to connect our wires. Remember, black wire goes to the inside. Yellow wire goes to the outside. Our heat resistor slides into this slot right here. This grommet can just get shoved back over. There's no need to seal that or anything. The pump will sit correctly. The bypass tube, the same thing. If this rubber tubing has been stretched too much, chop off about 1/8 of an inch to bring up fresh rubber. Press it on very, very tightly onto the bypass valve nipple. Now we're ready to connect the water tube. You should have this face. Now if it's facing this way, there's no need to manipulate this fitting because the brass shaft inside the pump will move any way that you need it to get this lined back up. And then I actually have the wrong fitting there. So this will line back up. You press that in. We bring the nut back over, get it nice and tight, and we're ready to go. And that's our water pump replacement.